Hello viewers, good afternoon. A terrific Tuesday to one and all. I'm Ron Grant, coming to you live and direct from Tortola in the beautiful British Virgin Islands, my home, my paradise. You're watching 284 Media. Thank you so much for tuning in. Mr. and Mrs. Mark Vanterpool, founders of the One Mart Superstore Group, last week acquired iconic British Virgin Islands hospitality and retail brand Pussers British West Indies Limited. Pussers, a conglomerate in the restaurant, merchandise, and apparel industries, was founded over 40 years ago by entrepreneur and Vietnam War veteran pilot Mr. Charles Tobias, MBE. It started as a four-stool bar, believe it or not, in the heart of Road Town, Tortola, British Virgin Islands, the territory's capital. We are this afternoon joined by two of the territory's finest and long-serving businessmen, the Honorable Mark Vanterpool and Mr. Charles Tobias, to speak on the purchase of the iconic Pussers and the history behind it. It's a conversation you don't want to miss. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. You're watching 284 Media. Gentlemen, aspiring gentlemen, and our partners that hold us down. It's season 2 of The Art of a Distinguished Gentleman, taking you on the most inspiring journey with the best and brightest distinguished gentlemen of the BVI. Raw, real-life lessons that translate to grounded, community-minded, well-rounded men like you've never seen them before. Governor Augustus J.U. Jaspert, Jovan Klein, Neil Klein, and so much more. Turning modern-day men into 21st century distinguished gentlemen with yours truly, Ron Grant, a 284 Media production. Viewers, welcome back once again. You're watching 284 Media, and I'm Ron Grant. The pleasure is always mine. Honorable Mark Vanterpool and Mr. Charles Tobias, welcome, good afternoon, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ron. Happy to be here.
Nice to be here.
Thank you so much. Now today, Pussers owns and operates or licensed restaurants, bars, and retail stores at several locations across the British Virgin Islands and in the United States. There is also a strong brand awareness at a Pussers presence in Canada, the UK, European, and Australian boating centers. As we know, Pussers is a lifestyle brand with a focus on the boating and sailing market. Now, the Pussers landings are a combination of a restaurant and bar with an attached Pussers co-store. The brand is well known for its painkillers, which we all enjoy, which is promoted with great success in many of the world's renowned bars and watering holes. Now, in 2020, the prestigious Drinks International publication listed the painkiller as number 22 of the world's top 100 cocktails, honor that we should all be proud of. Pussers also owns the trademark for painkiller bars, which are intended for opening in key U.S. locations. The Pussers rum operation was spun off and sold in 2014 due to specific laws in the U.S. which prohibited, of course, the simultaneous ownership of a bar and spirits products. Mr. Tobias, let's begin by sharing the history of Pussers with our viewers. Tell us about some of the history.
I can't hear.
You can go ahead and tell us about the history of Pussers.
Well, Pussers really had its origins back with Henry VIII in 1548. And at that time, he formed the Royal Navy, Great Britain's Royal Navy. And the ships went out to sea and they had to build the dockyards. And he was very much concerned with stealing, with thieving. So he appointed what was called the purser on board every ship to control ship stores. And he had, of course, control of all of the clothing, the apparel, the weapons, and rum. They started with beer, actually, in those days. They issued beer, but beer did not have a long shelf life. So after 6 or 7 months at sea, the beer would go off and they'd have to throw it away. And so later, about 50 years later, they came up with the idea of using rum. And so it was called, came from the purser. Whatever came from the purser was called Pussers. And it still is today, whether it was a sweater or food or whatever, it was called Pussers as a corruption of the word purser. So that's where the name came from. It wasn't a brand, it was their own mix, a specific mix that they specified that it had to be a certain way and a certain stills, and they came together and that made Pussers rum. So the Pussers applied to everything, not just the rum. It was everything that you wore, that you took from the ship stores, that you fought with, whatever it was. That's where the name came from.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that story. Now, when we were, or you and your partners were looking at perhaps leaving the business, why Mark Vanterpool and One Mart Superstore? How did this choice come about?
Well, I'd known Mark for many years, and we'd done business together. He gave us credit when we needed it, and we developed a personal friendship as well. And when we started thinking, well, two things happened. We got into deep doo-doo on this, having the recession, followed by Hurricane Irma, followed by the pandemic. And plus my age, I'm 87 now, I've gotten on.
Wow.
And so it was time to do something. And we never really discussed it until I got one day, Lorna's a good friend of mine, his sister, Lorna Smith, married to Doc Smith. And she said, you know, you and Mark should talk sometime. And she said the same thing to Mark, and we started to talk, and we both share the same values. We look at things the same way. And I was very interested that it should remain in the BVI with BV Islanders. And I felt that he has the ability, great acumen, great ability to make things happen. He's a doer. Mark says he's going to do something, he does it. I like that. And
Amazing.
So out of that came an understanding, and he has taken over, and he's going to continue to do what we've been doing, add his own expertise to that, and I think he will have great success, not only in the BVI, but the other things that we do away from here, up in the United States, in the United Kingdom, or down in Australia, many places that hold a future, but he's going to run it out of here, and it's going to stay here, happen here, and other places in the world.
Indeed. Mr. Vanterpool, let me first congratulate you. I am sure that many would have said, what are you doing? You're purchasing a business in the middle of a global pandemic. To some, crazy. But why did you do it anyway? What is the one thing that you felt strongly about owning this brand and carrying on the mantle?
Thank you, Ron. I am very excited to be a part of Pussers. I have followed Pussers for many, many years. Charles and his company and our group have been very closely working together. We supplied the Pussers restaurants for a long, long time now from our company's point of view. But I always admired Charles for his wit, his spirit, his intelligence, and his marketing and branding abilities. So I have always admired him for that. When the time came and Charles and us connected on discussing the possible purchase of Pussers, I thought it was a great idea, but obviously when you start dealing with the timing, which is during a pandemic,
yes,
just after several hurricanes, some of their stores were destroyed and knocked down. Obviously, we had to step back and ask the question if our knuckles are all together. However, we felt that the brand that Charles had built in Pussers and everything that's connected with it has a long history, has a legacy, and connected to the BVI, where Pussers have promoted the BVI worldwide. We felt that we would take the chance. It would be a difficult first year or two, but we felt we could make the investment and work with Charles and his team in the transition and be able to continue to make the legacy of Pussers great. I admire the legacy that Charles has built, and we want to continue that legacy on his behalf and on his family, his wife Joanna and the rest of the group. We are excited to build the Pussers brand right here in the BVI, where lots of patrons in the BVI, our own local people, love Pussers.
Of course.
We want to continue to make that great. We want to build back some of that love that Pussers have had with the local crowd. I used to remember when Pussers used to have some big sales on their clothing. You couldn't get inside. We're going to bring all that back, and we are going to, in addition to that, do some of the things that will rebuild the Pussers brand in the BVI and worldwide. We look forward to it. Very excited.
Wonderful. Mr. Vanterpool, thank you so much for clarifying and sharing with us what patrons can expect and your vision for continuing to move the company forward. Mr. Tobias, you mentioned earlier, or hinted rather, what are some of the challenges that you have faced over the 40 years of owning and operating Pussers? Can you go into detail as to what that journey as a business owner has been like?
Well, I think that the biggest challenge is finding good people who share your values. We've found that both from here and outside of the BVI. We have never made it a rule to have just only expats at all. To the contrary. From my very early days with Lavity Stout, and Lorna Smith was the permanent secretary there at the time, I assured them that my intent was to do everything we could to use and develop all the local talent that we could, and we've done that. I'd like to say at one time we had about 200 plus employees. I think now we've got about 150 or thereabouts. And all the really good slots were held by BV Islanders. All our managers or Down Islanders, people from this part of the world that shared our values and our culture. So that was not a difficult task, but it was one that took an understanding and a willingness to train people. And we found just wonderful people. We've been blessed with that. We have a hell of a staff. I mean, just great. They're like family. They are family. And I think that the next thing was financially being in a market. Our objective is to sell things that are tropical and nautical, apparel and that kind of things that are focused on yachting, boating, sailing onto that segment. And a lot of that is found mostly with people that visit us, come in here with, it says yachting, sailing, capital of the world, really. And that also goes, if they come, then they have to eat and drink, and then they come in, they enjoy themselves. So I've always said we were building a brand that you wear it, eat it, and drink it. And but that limits, our focus was narrowed down to hitting on those people, developing those and getting their patronage, because when they would go home into the US and into the UK and Australia and places, they would carry us with them and open up markets for us in their communities back where they live, which is what has happened. So that was always difficult when you get into something like a recession, because those people don't come. And then you follow that with a hurricane and they don't come again. We're all trying to survive that. Then the pandemic whacks everybody, but it hits us exceptionally hard. I'll give you, we used to do 40, 50,000 a day in the season, and we get down to the last year, you know, $1,800, $800 a day. I mean, hell, you can't even pay a week's rent out of that kind of thing. And that's why I've admired Mark so much, and knowing all the facts, he still had the guts to step up to the plate and say, hey, I want to do it. And so he's taken this and he's got the torch and he's going forward with it, and he is going to do it and he will do it. And I'm going to make damn sure that I help him every way that we can, all of us.
Absolutely. Mr. Tobias, can you tell us a little bit about the international and overseas operations? We've spoken a bit about local operations, but what does it look like on the international and overseas front for Pussers? We have several opportunities that we've pursued in the U.S. We do we do more in the U.S., like double or triple than we do here through licensing at this time. Those are units that we started and we licensed because of licensing laws in the U.S. at the time. We had the rum and we had these units that had bars in them, and we couldn't own them both. That's the law. You can't own a spirit and also have a bar license. So at that time, I made the decision up there to go with the mercantile, the merchandising side of it, and to license the bars and restaurants, which we've done. And they're in the medium millions of dollars as a business. I think there's a possibility we're exploring, I think, of buying those back. And we own the trademark for the painkiller for bars and restaurants, and that can be huge. We get at least
even now we get a call a month, people that want to do something on that basis with us. The Painkiller bar would have a bar and finger food and a very small presence for the mercantile that we would then lead them into the internet. Now, I've been with people who are very versed in that. Chuck Townsend's a great friend of mine. Chucker was the CEO of Condé Nast Publications. He grew that from 800 million to 4 or 5 billion. But he was also on the board of the Vineyard Vines company when they started. And they hit $1 billion this year. I don't know, they're about their 12th or 13th year. And I once asked Chucker, what do you think we could do if we really got someone to focus on that, just that one aspect? He said, if you didn't hit 500, if in 5 years you didn't hit 100 million a year, you wouldn't be doing the job. So those are some of the numbers that we've looked at.
Okay.
Neil Fisk did another study for us, and Neil was the CEO of the Gap, was his last job, and before that he had Bath and Body Works, and he reckoned we would get to 300 to 400 million in the 6th or 7th year. So those are the numbers that are real from these other markets, but our roots are in the BVI because that makes us real. We're not phony. We're not Madison Avenue concocted like Tommy Bahama. Where the hell does he come from? He came from Madison Avenue. Great, brilliant idea, but imagine what we can do being the real thing that we are and having the following that we have a following worldwide of people that are very much love the brand, love Pussers, and love the BVI and the way they've been treated here over the years. Our plan is to capitalize on all of that and to go on out and spread the gospel according to Pussers.
Mr. Tobias, you have been doing an exceptional job for the past 30, 40 years as it pertains to this brand and making Pussers a household name. I must ask you, when you look back and you have now passed the mantle on, what are you most proud of when you think of your journey?
Well, I think that, you can build a brand without spending a lot of money. And if we continue as we have, which is to have a great presence with boating, yachting, and sailing, and those people are affluent, and continue to promote them. And look, you can get them through the magazines they read, the things they look at on the internet, the podcasts, and through the clubs they all belong to. And it's a very small clique, but it's a very big market. I mean, the market, you figure that they do about, Polo does about 20 billion a year. Nautica and the others combined, and that Paul and Shark, they do about another 7 or 8 billion. That's 30 billion roughly. And if we only get I think we get 5% of that market eventually. What's that? I mean, that's 3 billion. So say we get only half of that. That's, to 101.5 billion, 1,500 million. So I think we can do that. We have a lot of momentum. We just got to get out there more. My last few years have been spent putting Band-Aids on everything. Everything was torn apart, destroyed. As you know, I mean, our people had a terrible time. We gave away 25,000 meals at the pub. We care, Mark's cared about all our people today. He's guaranteed them and laborers behind him, working with him, that everybody's going to get what's due them, all their severance, all their vacation pay, their retirement, everything. That was number one on his agenda. We got to cover them first, and we've agreed to do that. All of that spreads the word, spreads the gospel, I say, according to Pusser.
Indeed. Honorable Vanterpool, you are perhaps one of the most resilient, not only individuals, but businessmen that I know. Continue to bounce back, continue to show national pride. What are your expectations in terms of recovery from the effects of this pandemic and the difficulties that are being faced for Pussers?
Ron, I always believe that you go through difficult times to sharpen your edges and make you better. So rather than our group focusing on the negatives of the pandemic and so on, we acknowledge that it's there. We want to make sure that we take care of situations during the pandemic, our workers, our staff, our customers. We help a lot with, as you may or may not know, with helping the FSN, the Red Cross, and doing our own direct help with people who are suffering. But that's during the pandemic. However, we have great hope in the Virgin Islands, great hope in the British Virgin Islands. We believe that the BVI is a small country, but it has done and it will continue to do big things. I'm a person who studies numbers, I look at statistics, and when you look at the Virgin Islands, the BVI as a place that is only about 30,000 plus persons living here. But in 2016, the number of tourists who spent 7 days or more here was 400,000. And the number of cruise ship visitors was in excess of 700,000. And when you compare that to bigger islands around the Caribbean, Antigua is an island with an international airport. But the overnight visitors, as I recall, if I remember my numbers quite correctly, was in the region of 250 or 260,000 overnighting. Okay. And I don't know what their cruise ship visitors were like. But I'm saying BVI has a lot of potential. After this pandemic, visitors love the Virgin Islands. They will be coming back in droves, I believe. We have to be prepared for them. Our hospitality, not just Pussers restaurants and Pussers stores, but I want to encourage all the other restaurants, all the other businesses, to prepare for a real bumper year in 2022. And I believe that we at Pussers are going to prepare for that. We at all our businesses will be preparing for a bumper tourism year in 2022. I have the faith, we believe, we're a God-fearing people, yes, in our group or family, and we trust God that He will guide the British Virgin Islands and bring us back to good economic recovery, and we are preparing for that. We make our investments, we work with a bank. I always encourage people to keep two people on your side, your bank and your suppliers. If they're happy with you, you can do a lot of things, and that's what we do as a group.
That is great advice. Now, I must ask you, are the restaurants going to be closed for any period of a time as you transition, or will they remain open? How is the staff going to be impacted by the change? Any expectations in terms of how that operation, day-to-day operations, are going to be run?
Pussers will remain open. I will say that we closed for 1 day. Last Friday, we were unfortunate to have lost one of the good key people in Pussers, Kurt Tennicut, who worked with me many days over the last several weeks and months. And unfortunately, last Thursday, we lost him. We closed on Friday in honor of Kurt. The employees loved him, we loved him, we enjoyed him. We were hoping to be going forward with him, but it wasn't to be. However, Pussers in Rowtown and the Pussers in Soapers Hole will continue. We have released the Pussers Mayettes back to the proprietors. They will be doing their thing down there. But we will continue to open regularly. We have some ideas that will be rolled out over the next few months, and then some bigger ideas later. So we want you to prepare for it. Pussers Rowtown will quickly transform to a bigger space. We will take the retail on the top floor out and intermingle it with the bottom and make more space on top right away for patrons to use on top. Eventually, that will become another restaurant like Charles had before, which used to be called Pussers Outpost. But for the moment, we will transform it into more space in this pandemic for persons and patrons to come and sit and have a good meal on the top level and look over the ocean. So we're preparing for that. Pussers in Soapers Hole, we are looking at getting the second level back up on track very soon also. We want to invite patrons to come and enjoy, come and see. We will be looking at the menu, adjusting the menu accordingly with the input from the chefs and the food and beverage managers. And then we're going to reopen the retail stores a little later on. We may have a big blowout sale before that, so look out for that. But the lovely clothing that Pussers has and all of their souvenirs and so on. But that's something we're going to be doing. We'll be getting the internet back up and track and focusing on that so you can buy online all of the Pussers goodies. And then we'll be also looking at Pussers, as Charles indicated, worldwide, especially in the US, and what we'll be doing with the Pussers merchandise. We'll be putting a lot of attention to that. We are looking at Anegada. Charles has a great idea for Anegada, which he's discussing with us that he started working towards. We will pick up on that and make it great. And we'll be looking at a possible location again for a restaurant in Virgin Gorda, and along with the retail store that we have in Levick Bay right now. So there are a lot of plans afoot. In the long run, I want to remember the legacy of Charles and Pussers. So there may be a museum on the line that visitors can come and see, and locals. A museum of a lot of the Pussers things, and linking that museum to our own local sailing and so on, and sloops and ships and boats. We have that in mind. Something might happen down in the Parkwood Pond area and that on the water side. So there are a number of issues with that. We have a ruin down in Parkwood Pond that we have purchased on some property. We will be intermingling that ruin with some ideas of a museum that we want to put in to involve BVI relics, boats, and so on, along with some of the Pussers ideas and some of the great history and stuff that Charles has that he would like to see go into a museum. So lots of great ideas we have. Obviously, you have to take our time. This is not the best time to make any big investments, but we will be rolling it out. And our patrons will know when we are doing that. Just to let them know, we are getting ready for a big celebration of the transition, but it'll come soon. We just did a quick, easy turnover yesterday, but I want our patrons to know that they'll be welcome to a big celebration sometime in the not too distant future.
Thank you so much. Gentlemen, allow me to be the first. Mr. Tobias, let me start with you. On behalf of the residents of the Virgin Islands, I would like to publicly thank you for the 40 years of service through Pussers and in a variety of capacities that you have served the Virgin Islands. And we thank you, we appreciate you, and also to the Honorable Mark Vanterpool and his family. We congratulate you on the new ownership, and we wish you the very, very best.
Thank you, Ron. Pizzas are still there, and so are those lovely wings. So make sure you get down there and get some soon.
All right. Viewers, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Ron Grant, and you're watching 284 Media.